Alright, so let's toggle this again. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to add this small gradient that I have in the background. Doing the same exact thing I did before. I just sampled, and I'm going to go into this solid white color that I filled. I'm going to add a layer style to that as well. So, just go in here, add the gradient. If I grab this first one, it'll take it from what I currently have for sampled colors. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to move the end of this gradient to make it a little bit, to move the gradient up on the page. Okay, that looks pretty good. Alright, let's just compare again. Yeah, it's looking there. I'm going to adjust this to be this color, so I'm just going to sample and go in here, and I'm just going to paint bucket it. There we go. Move this text up so it's nice and even. Alright. You might have noticed that we had this little bubble around here. What I think I'm going to do is make it so that when you go to any one of these pages, it toggles this sort of bubble when you visit it. So when you're on the About page, it'll have that bubble there, but then when you're on the Portfolio page, it'll have a little bubble around that one. So when you visit each one, you have some sort of idea visually of where you are on the website. So I'm going to create that now. So I'm just going to sample this color so I have it. And I'm going to start organizing my layers a little bit by using layer groups. So I'm going to take all of these buttons, all the text for these buttons, and select them by clicking one of them, holding down Shift and clicking again, and then doing Control G, and that creates a group. So I'm going to call this button text. Alright, so that's my text for the buttons. And I noticed something while I was working on this earlier, and that was that even though all these words are centered, this blog word, since it has that G, it centered it vertically, but we want all these words to be in line, so I'm just going to adjust that word, bring that down a little bit. So there we go. And if you notice, I just created this guide right here, and to do that you can just show your rulers by doing Control R, and that'll let you just click on the ruler and drag out a guide. And then if you don't want the guide anymore, you can click on the guide and bring it back up to the ruler, and it'll get rid of it. So I just did that to kind of temporarily make a line to see where everything was and how to see where everything was lining up. Alright, so let's create that those little bubbles. So what I'm going to use is actually the shape tool, which you can get to by over here, and I want the rounded rectangular tool. Alright, and what that does is it creates a rectangle, but it rounds out the edges. So I'm going to set the radius to something like 12. Maybe that's a little much. How about 8? 8 looks good. I'm going to go with 8. So I'm just going to click and drag out a selection. And I think what I'll do is I'll just kind of judge how big it is compared to the largest word that I have. So Portfolio is probably the biggest one that I've got. And so just drag that out. I'm going to bring that down here. And I'm going to center it just like how we centered the text earlier. Make a selection and trim the selection by doing Control Shift Alt and selecting this little rectangle that we had drawn out before. So that constrains our selection. And if I select the Move tool and click on this little bubble that we dragged out, and we can center it. Okay. And I'm just going to deselect that and duplicate it and move it over. And just move that down. And do the same thing for these ones. And we're going to have to line up these as well. So same process. When I duplicated these and dragged them over, I held down Shift. And by holding down Shift, I constrained it to only move in one axis, so it didn't move up or down. So I know it's vertically aligned, so all I have to really worry about is horizontal. So I'm not going to constrain or compress these selections to be only this, because they're already centered vertically, so I don't really need this box to be tightly wrapped around this. So I'm just going to switch to the Move tool and align it horizontally for each one of these. So there we go, and that one's good, and this one. Alright, cool. So now I have all of those little bubbles, and what I'm going to do just to keep things a little bit organized is select all of these again and do Control G, and I'm just going to name this Bubbles. And if you noticed, if I show this, you can see that there's a little bit of a shadow in there, and I did that using layer styles. Again, I love layer styles, so let's do that. To do that, I'm just gonna go over to one of these, and I think I'll do this one. We'll use the About one, and double click over here in this empty space, and we're going to use an inner shadow. And by default it's pretty large. We're just going to tighten this up, make the distance smaller, make the size smaller, and lower that opacity way down, and change the angle so it's about 90 degrees. And there we go, looks pretty good. And now, instead of doing that to all 3 or 4 of them, I'm going to right click on my layer and do Copy Layer Style, and then I can click and shift click and select all of them and right click and paste layer style, and now all of them have that same little inner shadow. Alright, that's cool. So again, when we go back to this one, you can tell that we've got this one pretty nailed down. There's a little bit of a difference in the shape of the bubble, but I'm fine with that. But you can tell that the text over here, when there isn't a bubble over it, I made it a darker color so you could actually see it a little better. So I'm just going to sample that darker color, and we'll get on making that. So I'm just going to collapse bubbles and take bubble text, and I'm going to duplicate bubble text. Alright, duplicate the group so I have a copy of it. And I'm going to hide this one and this one. So let's show this, and I'm just going to go in here and set the color to be what we sampled. I'm going to do that for all of these. Just grab that color and set it to all of them. Alright. Okay. So now we've got the text for when we're not on a specific page. So if we show all of this and go in here and hide a couple of these, so if we hide About, and we go in here and hide Contact, Portfolio, and Blog, and we hide these top 3 as well, we get what we were going for. And when we go to actually save out all of these images, we're going to be saving out this, and we're going to be saving out this. And I'll show you why later, but that's why we have these separated out that way. So I'm just going to turn these back on so that it looks pretty, and we can see what we're going for. Okay. So I'm just going to collapse all those, and I'm just going to organize these layers a little bit, keep things a little bit tidier. So I'm going to move this one down, and I'm going to group all of this navigation bar together. That way I can keep track of it a little bit better. So just call this nav bar. All right.